Let's talk about the U.S. election that just went down. Because, the one side was like, oh, you got to vote blue. We got to get these horrible Republicans out of there that want to take away our rights. And when they say rights, they mean that they want to be able to say babies are not human beings. Okay. And then you have the right, and they're like, oh, we need a red wave so that our fascism is better and we can abuse immigrants. And I'm like, you're both psychos. Like you're just worshiping your side. So for the first time, in the past, I would always at least loosely follow the election because deeply rooted in our minds, whether we lean, left or right from our upbringing or just the way we've lived our lives, deeply rooted in our subconscious is the idea that maybe this new ruler will save us. And I've said for years, the only one who's going to save us is Jesus, and the new politicians aren't going to do anything. Now, there's people that never vote. It's a vote for violence. I'm not even going to go that far. I've ran for Congress, so I understand the idea of being supported if you're running, but I was running to be an activist and to fight for people and to vote no in Congress. Of course, I didn't get elected because the big agriculture congressman that could be bought had millions of dollars in funding to make sure that election was won for the people in power. And that's the problem with elections. So if you know someone who's an activist, who's a fighter, and they're trying to make a change, and they're like, they're running not to make more policy, but to resist policy, to be an activist, or, you say you have a sheriff and he's running so that he can fire all the cops, something like that. I fully understand, go out there and support them, because people that are front runners, that are trying to be leaders and trying to fight, even if they're not doing it exactly like you, I think they deserve your support. But in general, when you actually get to the general election, no one is an option that's really relevant. There could be exceptions, right? But realistically, those of us who actually want to do something good are out by the time you get to the general election. We don't make it through the primaries. And the system is set up to give us the illusion that our vote has control. Now, this doesn't even enter the people, every time that people's politician, that their idol doesn't win, right? They're like, well, Trump, why isn't Trump in office? They stole it from him. I have no doubt that cheating goes on in these elections on both sides. But this idea that Trump deserves to be in office, that he was anything but another fascist, violating the Constitution, trampling our rights. If you think Trump was a defender of freedom in the Constitution, you need to do a hard stop and you need to sit down and realize that you've been nationalized, that you've become a flag waver. Ditto if you think Biden or Hillary is going to save the day and restore the country. People standing up for people, loving people, resisting corruption, resisting the police, that's what changes. And so it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't matter if it's Ron DeSantis or if it's Trump or if it's Hillary. These are all crooked politicians. Ron DeSantis, he's the Florida guy, right? That just did the whole thing where he was using immigrants as a way to make the left look dumb with the whole sending immigrants to some rich island or something. And sure, both sides are dumb. But these people have a right to travel and be left alone. Anyone who says they're for freedom and then says you need permission from government to enter the country has no grasp of our country's history, of the Constitution, or even what a basic level of human freedom is. No one, and I mean no individual at all, needs permission to live and work. If you go back 50, 60 years, you didn't have to go through a border checkpoint to cross from U.S. to Mexico. Have you ever watched a John Wayne movie? You just drove across. You rode your horse across. You walked across. If you wanted to go work, you went and worked. In fact, there was no such thing as immigration controls in the United States till after the Civil War, when the Constitution was essentially scrapped piece by piece because it was completely illegal. And the Founding Fathers knew it was completely illegal. The Founding Fathers, shortly after the Constitution was written, a lot of them were outraged because the federal government wanted immigrants to register as immigrants after they came to the country. It wasn't even a consideration that you could restrict someone coming into the country. That was never even on the table. They were outraged at the idea that you were even told you had to register. And if you didn't register, I think it was a $10 fine or something like that, supposedly. And they were like, this is ridiculous. This is fascism. It's complete tyranny. This is not what we fought for. So fascism grew early, but all of this fear mongering, really all this border fear mongering, and these are criminals coming into our country, invading our states, that came after 9/11, when everyone from the left to the right to the church sold out freedom of their children in trade for the war on terror that George Bush sold us. Same politicians, different day, right? And so, yeah, I get it. Like, I mean, I've been following that Ammon Bundy was running for governor in Idaho. Ammon Bundy and I don't always agree on everything, but I think Ammon Bundy has a good heart, and he's a fighter, and he's an activist, and I respect that. So, like, if somebody lived in Idaho, I get that they would support Ammon Bundy, but do you think the elite are going to let someone like that be in control? People like Ron DeSantis are in charge and allowed to be in power because they know how to play the left against the right, which is a benefit for both sides, and to fuel the hate and the division of whatever's going on in politics in these days. Those are the people that win, the people that can be controlled by large corporate interests, and at the same time can fuel whatever narrative is going to be useful for the party elites on both sides. And so I get so tired, like, I didn't even look to see, like, oh, which way did the House win? I don't know. Somebody can tell me. I know they were all saying it was going to be red wave, and yeah, it wasn't, because they're all like, oh, people are fed up. People are fed up with both sides, and yet you keep voting. In the end, how many of you, I won't mock you if you confess, but I want you to think about it. In the end, how many of you went out and voted and said, well, I'm still going to vote the Republican because it's the best, it's not the guy I wanted, et cetera, but it's the best we can get? How many of you compromised? And I started saying this all the way back when Trump started running for office originally. I said, you know what? Our compromise will not give us freedom. And it didn't. Trump was an absolute fascist joke just for this side. And the liberty, patriot resistance, they stopped. They gave up because now their idol was in office. They showed their cards. They showed they didn't really care about freedom and justice. They just cared about their brand of fascism being in control. And Trump played to that. And so if you think, oh, I vote Republican, if we go red, it's going to fix anything, that's just an indication that you haven't read a history book, because it's never fixed anything. Whether it's red, whether it's blue, this whole party thing, this whole like, oh, we got to switch parties, we got to do this. You're just voting for who is going to be in charge of your slavery this year. And that's what I have to say about the election. And I think maybe we should just all stop and think, I get it. I've done the same thing before. I've done the same compromise in the past. I could still vote here from Mexico, but I don't, because none of the tyrants are acceptable to me. I choose none of them, and I don't recognize them as lawful authority. They're simply criminals. And it's always this excuse, Lightspeed. I get it. Like, oh, I just can't stand Biden, so I'm voting for the other guy. If you can stand Trump more than you can stand Biden, there's a problem, right? If I say, oh, well, at least Trump does this. Trump does what? Trump abuses the immigrants. He wants to fill prisons. He wants to lock Edward Snowden in a cage. He wants to take the guns first and put due process later. Trump is a psychotic, egotistical tyrant. He's just your brand of psychotic, and he talks about the things, he at least pretends he hates the things you hate to get you fueled up and fired up so that you ignore the fact that he's really just another narcissistic psychopath that wants to control people. Reality, right? So Trump was actually far more vocal against the Constitution of the United States, from what I've seen, than Biden. But both of them are in the same camp. Both of them, behind the scenes, are eating at the same table, you guys. And so, if we can't see that, the problem really is with us, and we're getting what we deserve. We're getting the destruction of our freedoms and liberties that we deserve. I see the same thing in Mexico. voting the same politicians that are screwing them over, that are just bitches for the US politicians to keep abusing them. Mexico wouldn't be poor. It wouldn't be downtrodden. We have incredible amounts of resources here, except for the drug war, the border, right? If there was a natural gradient at the border like there was in the past, the Mexicanos that wanted to go make some extra money up north, they'd go there, they'd work hard, they'd come back. The economy would increase here. The economy would be good there. You would have workers. There would be more equality. All of this is artificial. The economy collapse, the inflation, the inability to travel, the insane police, the violence from the drug war, all of that was created by the people that you continue to vote for. And then you say, this is insane. We have to make a change. And then you vote for people that are literally doing the same thing over and over and over again, and you expect different results. So no, I didn't vote for another tyrant. And that's enough for this. Thank you all. Peace.